My name is Daniel. I'm 48, and I've spent most of my adult life as an accountant, a man of ledgers and quiet calculations, a man who found comfort in the certainty of numbers. I've always been that way, steady, reliable, the sort of man who pays bills on time and never forgets a birthday. For most of my life, my daughter, Emma, was the brightest line in my ledger. Every choice I made, every hour I worked, was for her. The night of Emma's graduation party, I arrived early, slipping into the rented hall like a ghost. The place was bright with laughter and cheap balloons, the scent of buttercream and champagne drifting in the warm air. I stood at the edge of the crowd, half listening to the small talk around me. My ex-wife, Marissa, was there too, her arm draped casually around her new husband, Paul, the man who had stepped into the life I'd once believed was mine alone. I kept my distance, my eyes fixed on Emma. She looked radiant in her white dress, the soft light catching in her dark hair as she moved through the room, laughing, hugging friends and relatives. I remember thinking that she looked exactly like her mother on our wedding day, beautiful and just a little bit distant, like she was already halfway out the door. Someone pressed a glass of champagne into my hand. I took a polite sip, the bubbles sharp on my tongue. My throat felt tight, and I couldn't quite swallow the sweetness. I watched Emma move to the center of the room, a microphone clutched in her hand. My heart gave a small, hopeful flutter. This was her moment, the culmination of every late-night study session, every exam, every quiet hour spent in the library. She cleared her throat and began to speak. Her voice was bright and confident, echoing off the polished floors. She thanked her professors, her friends, her mother, and then she turned to Paul. "I don't know where I'd be without my stepdad," she said, her voice catching just a little. "He's been the father I never had, the one who believed in me even when I didn't believe in myself." A soft murmur of approval rippled through the crowd. Paul pulled her close, his hand gentle on her shoulder. I felt the words like a fist to the chest, each syllable a quiet betrayal. I stood there, rooted to the spot, my hands numb around the delicate stem of the glass. The room seemed to tilt around me, the laughter and music blurring into a low, indistinct roar. I wanted to step forward, to tell her the truth of the years I'd spent behind the scenes. Every tuition payment made in secret, every late-night phone call with the financial aid office, every time I told her mother that I would handle it, no matter the cost. But the words lodged in my throat, stuck behind a lifetime of quiet sacrifices. This was her day, and I wouldn't be the man who ruined it. I wouldn't be the father who made a scene, who demanded his place when she'd so clearly decided to give it away. So I put down the glass of champagne, careful not to make a sound. I slipped out of the hall, the laughter of strangers echoing behind me. Outside, the evening air was cool and soft against my skin. I walked to my car, the keys cold in my hand. As I slid behind the wheel, I closed my eyes and let the memory of her words wash over me. He's been the father I never had. I thought of the day I taught her to ride a bike, how small she looked, her knees scuffed, and her eyes bright with determination. I remember her laugh, high and breathless, as she wobbled down the sidewalk, my hands hovering just behind her shoulders. That memory was mine alone, a small, perfect moment of trust and love. I started the car and drove away, the road unfolding quietly beneath me. In the rearview mirror, the lights of the hall grew smaller and smaller until they vanished entirely. I didn't look back. I didn't sleep that night. After I left the party, I drove aimlessly through the empty streets, the city a blur of neon and shadows. My mind kept replaying Emma's words over and over, each one a sharp echo in the quiet of the car. I thought of calling her, of asking her why she'd said it, why she'd looked me in the eye and said nothing, while the world applauded the man who'd stepped into my place. But the thought of her voice, tight with confusion or forced apology, was more than I could bear. I parked the car in front of my apartment and sat there for a long time, the engine ticking as it cooled. Eventually, I went inside and pulled out the worn leather folder that held the records of Emma's education, the college fund I'd created when she was just a baby, a promise made in the soft glow of the nursery lamp. I'd kept everything. Every deposit, every withdrawal, every email confirming tuition payments and housing fees. It had always mattered to me, this quiet, steady proof of my devotion. I turned on the desk lamp, the circle of light spilling over the receipts and bank statements. I ran my fingers over the numbers, remembering the nights I'd worked late to add just a little more to that fund, the weekends I'd skipped dinners out so I could be sure there was enough. Each line on the page felt like a small, bloodless cut. This was my record of love, unacknowledged, unseen, but they're all the same. In the soft glow of the lamp, I felt the betrayal settle deeper into my bones. It wasn't just Emma's words. It was the way Marissa had hidden the truth from her, the way she'd let another man wear my place like a borrowed coat. My quiet sacrifices had been folded up and tucked away, replaced by a narrative that made everyone else feel comfortable. I thought of Emma's childhood. The way she'd curl up beside me on the couch with her battered copy of Matilda, how she'd always wanted me to read it in my best storybook voice, how her laughter had been the brightest sound in the world. I thought of how she'd called me Daddy back then, a name that felt sacred in her small voice. I took a deep breath and opened my laptop. I began to gather the receipts, scanning them into neat, orderly PDFs, proof that I had been there, even when I wasn't allowed to be seen. I made sure to include everything. The tuition bills stamped, paid in full, the dorm fees, the meal plans. It felt both mechanical and deeply personal, like I was cataloging the bones of my devotion, one quiet ledger entry at a time. The clock ticked on, the night stretching out around me. I didn't cry. I was long past tears. Instead, I felt a low, simmering resolve. If Emma wanted to believe Paul was the father she never had, so be it. But she would know the truth. She would know that every success she claimed as hers was built on the foundation of my sacrifices. I wouldn't be erased. The sky was turning pale with dawn when I finally leaned back in my chair. My eyes burned from staring at the screen, but the work was done. The truth was there in black and white, undeniable. I closed the laptop and sat in the silence, the only sound the distant hum of traffic outside my window. A memory surfaced, unbidden and bittersweet, Emma's first day of college. She'd been so excited, so sure of herself, her face alight with possibility. I'd driven her to the dorm, carried her boxes up 3 flights of stairs, and watched her vanish into a sea of strangers. She'd hugged me quickly, her arms around my neck for the briefest of moments before she disappeared into that new world. I'd stood there, the boxes empty at my feet, feeling both proud and so very alone. I let that memory settle in me, a quiet ache that I didn't try to banish. It was real, and it was mine. When the sun finally rose, I closed the folder and set it gently on the desk. I knew what I had to do next. I would send Emma the truth not out of anger, but because I owed it to myself to be seen, even if only for a moment. By the time the sun was high in the sky, I felt a strange kind of calm settle over me, like the stillness after a storm. I opened my email, the cursor blinking in the empty message box. For a long moment, I just sat there, the words slow to come. It wasn't that I didn't know what to say. It was that the truth was so stark, so final, that it felt almost too heavy to lay down. But I owed it to myself, and to her, whether she realized it or not. I started with a simple subject line, "For your records." The words felt clinical, detached, a small shield for the rawness underneath. I attached the PDFs one by one, each a quiet confession of all the ways I had been there, even when she hadn't seen it. Then I paused, my fingers hovering over the keys. How to tell her that I was done, that the weight of being the invisible father had finally worn me down to nothing? I thought of all the times I'd shown up, quietly and without thanks. Every birthday check, every whispered word of encouragement on the phone when she doubted herself, every moment I'd chosen her future over my own comfort. I kept the note short, deliberate in its quiet finality. "Emma, here are the receipts for your education. Every semester, every dorm fee, every meal plan I covered for you. I thought you should know the truth. From now on, you can call Paul your father for everything. I won't be adding to the fund anymore. I wish you the best." Dad, I read it over once, twice, and then hit send. The screen flashed, and just like that, the weight of years of silent support was released. I closed the laptop and leaned back in my chair, the morning light spilling across the floor. I logged into the college fund account one last time. The balance sat there, untouched, waiting to be fed again. I transferred what was left back to my own account. No anger, no sense of triumph. Just the quiet resolve that it was time to let go. I'd always told myself the fund was for Emma, but now I saw it for what it truly was, a lifeline to a child who no longer saw me. And I was done clinging to it. A memory drifted in, unbidden, Emma's voice on the phone years ago, telling me she'd passed her first college exam. Her laugh had been breathless with relief, and I'd closed my eyes to soak it in. "Thank you, Dad," she'd said, so soft and full of trust. I held on to that for a moment, let it fill the small, empty spaces of my heart. I knew there would be fallout. The messages would come, accusations, confusion, maybe even apologies. But I wouldn't answer them. My part was done. I played my role until there was nothing left of me but a quiet ache and the knowledge that I had been there, even if no one else had seen it. I closed the laptop for the last time, the click of the hinge a soft punctuation to my decision. I sat there for a long while, letting the stillness wash over me. Outside, the world moved on. Cars passed, birds sang, children laughed in the distance. Life didn't pause for heartbreak, and maybe that was its own kind of mercy. I thought of Emma as a little girl, her hair wild in the wind as she learned to ride her bike. I remembered how she looked over her shoulder, a fierce light in her eyes, trusting me to catch her if she fell. I'd kept that promise for years, always there to catch her. But now, she had chosen someone else to be her safety net. And well, I had chosen to step back. The first message came less than an hour after I sent the email. A short, confused text. "Dad? What is this? What are you talking about?" I read it once, then set my phone face down on the kitchen table. I could feel my pulse in my throat, a small, steady beat of resolve. I made a cup of coffee, the bitter scent grounding me in the moment. The phone buzzed again, and again, a frantic chorus of confusion that only grew louder as the day wore on. "You're scaring me. Please call me. This isn't true. Mom said you stopped helping years ago. What is all this? I don't understand. Please, I need to talk to you." Each message was a small, desperate attempt to pull me back in, to force me to play the role I'd been cast in for so long. But I didn't answer. I let the messages pile up like snowdrifts, cold, untouched, a testament to the line I'd drawn between us. I spent the day in the quiet of my apartment, moving slowly, deliberately. I cleaned the kitchen, wiped down the counters. I took the long-neglected guitar out of the corner and let my fingers find the chords I'd once known by heart. The music felt foreign at first, the strings stiff and unyielding beneath my fingertips. But after a while, the notes began to flow, and I let them carry me somewhere softer, somewhere that had nothing to do with Emma or Marissa or the life I'd left behind. The messages kept coming. Longer now, more frantic. "How could you do this? I don't believe you. Mom said you were gone, that you didn't care. Please, I'm sorry. I didn't know." I read them all, each one a small wound that I let bleed in silence. There was a kind of clarity in her confusion, a bitter proof that I'd been erased so thoroughly that my presence had become invisible. She hadn't known because she hadn't wanted to see. Or maybe she'd been taught not to. It didn't matter anymore. I thought of all the years I'd spent working late nights, the quiet glow of the computer screen as I balanced my own bills with the tuition payments that always seemed to grow larger, more demanding. I remembered the small thrill of each paid invoice, the quiet pride that I was giving her something better than I'd ever had. Those memories were mine alone. I wouldn't let her confusion take them from me. Outside, the sky turned the soft pink of early summer dusk. I stood on the balcony, the warm breeze on my face, and watched the sun slip below the rooftops. In the distance, children's laughter drifted up from the street, a reminder that life kept moving, even in the shadow of betrayal. I didn't answer Emma's messages. I didn't know her that anymore. My part was done. She had her stepfather now, the man she'd chosen to name as her father in front of the world. And I had the quiet certainty that I'd been there, even when no one else saw. A memory rose up in the silence. Emma, 5 years old, curled up on the couch in a princess costume, fast asleep in the crook of my arm. I remembered the weight of her, soft and warm, the steady rise and fall of her breath. I remembered thinking, this is everything. I let that memory wash over me, a bittersweet ache in the center of my chest. And then, with a quiet exhale, I let it go. She showed up at my door in the middle of the afternoon, her hair tangled and her eyes red from crying. I almost didn't recognize her. This wasn't the confident young woman from the graduation party, the one who'd stood there so sure of herself, so sure of her narrative. This was a girl undone, the truth of my absence pressing in on her from all sides. I didn't say anything at first. I just stood there in the doorway, my hand resting on the knob, the threshold between us like a final, unspoken promise. She opened her mouth, closed it again, and then the words came in a rush. "Dad, please." I didn't know. I swear to you, I didn't know. Her voice cracked around the words, each one weighted with confusion and a desperate kind of hope. "I thought you'd stop caring. Mom said, she said you didn't want to be part of it anymore." I believed her. I didn't know. I watched her as she spoke, the way her shoulders hunched under the weight of this new knowledge. My own shoulders felt lighter than they had in years. "I'm sorry," she said again, softer this time. "I didn't mean to hurt you." I didn't understand. I nodded, a small, measured gesture. "I know you didn't," I said, my voice calm in the quiet of the apartment. "But it doesn't change what happened." She looked at me like she wanted to say more, but the words caught in her throat. The silence between us stretched, heavy and unfamiliar. In that stillness, I felt something shift inside me, a soft, final click of understanding. "I can't be part of your life anymore, Emma," I said quietly. The words tasted like grief and relief all at once. "Not like this. Not when I'm just a footnote in someone else's story." Her breath hitched, her lips trembling. "But you're my father. You'll always be my father." I closed my eyes for a moment, a memory flickering like an old home movie in the darkness behind my eyelids. Emma, 7 years old, running to me in the park, her arms outstretched, the sound of her laughter ringing like a bell. I held that memory close, let it steady me. "I was your father," I said, opening my eyes again. "I was there, even when you didn't see me. But I won't keep trying to prove it to you. You have someone else now, someone you called your father in front of everyone who mattered to you. Let him have that. Let him be that for you." She shook her head, tears slipping down her cheeks. "No, please don't do this. I need you." I felt a hollow ache in my chest at her words, a flicker of the old instinct to gather her up and tell her everything would be all right. But I stayed where I was, rooted in the quiet strength of my decision. "You'll be fine," I said softly. "You have your stepfather, and you have yourself. That's enough." She reached for me then, her hand trembling. For a moment, I let her touch my arm, the ghost of her childhood in that small, desperate grasp. And then I stepped back, just enough to break the contact. "I wish you the best, Emma," I said. "Truly." She looked at me for a long moment, the words she wanted to say caught in the space between us. And then, slowly, she nodded. She turned away, her shoulders shaking as she walked down the hall and out of my life. I closed the door behind her, the soft click of the latch echoing in the quiet. I leaned against it, my breath coming slow and steady. I felt the finality of it settle into me, a bittersweet ache that was also, somehow, a relief. I walked to the window and looked out at the city below, the late afternoon sun painting everything in gold. A memory surfaced, gentle and unbidden. Emma asleep on my chest, her small hand clutching my shirt, her breath warm against my skin. I let that memory sit with me, a quiet benediction to everything I'd done, everything I'd given. And then, with a deep breath, I let it go. The days after Emma left were slow and quiet, each one unfolding like the hush of a library at dawn. I found myself lingering over morning coffee, the steam curling into the soft light of my kitchen. I let the small routines of my life take on a new kind of weight, the measured grind of coffee beans, the low murmur of classical music on the radio, the gentle ritual of watering the plants on my balcony. These small acts became the shape of my days, a quiet testament to a life that was finally mine alone. I didn't think of Emma much in those first days, not in the frantic, consuming way I once had. When memories did come, they came like soft ripples in a pond, the warm weight of her on my shoulders at the beach when she was 3, the way she'd reach for my hand when she was scared of thunderstorms. Each memory carried a bittersweet ache, but I let it settle without trying to hold on. I realized that my love for her had never been about the validation of being called her father. It had been about the giving, the quiet, endless giving that had defined me for so long. And now, there was nothing left to give. I took long walks in the early evening, the city soft around me as the sun slipped below the buildings. Sometimes I'd sit in the small park near my apartment and watch the children play, their laughter bright and unburdened. It was a strange, tender sort of comfort. Seeing them live so fully in the moment, unmarked by the past. I realized, in those small moments, that I could have that too, a life unburdened by what I'd lost. One night, I took the guitar from its stand and played for hours, my fingers stumbling at first before finding the rhythm I thought I'd forgotten. The music was quiet, unpolished, but it felt honest in a way that words rarely did. I let it fill the empty spaces of my apartment, a kind of quiet benediction to everything I'd carried for so long. I stopped checking my phone. I let Emma's last messages, her final attempts to bridge the silence, fade into the background, unread and unanswered. There was a quiet power in that choice, a small revenge in refusing to let her confusion draw me back in. She had chosen her story, and I had chosen mine. One afternoon, I pulled out the box of old photographs I'd kept tucked away in the back of my closet. I sifted through them slowly. Emma's gap-toothed smile at 7, the first day of kindergarten, the way she used to curl up in my lap and fall asleep. Each image was a testament to the years I'd given her, the life I'd built around her dreams. I let them settle in my mind like a quiet prayer, then I closed the box and put it away. I didn't need to keep opening old wounds to remember who I'd been. In the quiet of my apartment, I found something I hadn't felt in years, a kind of peace, a soft certainty that I didn't owe anyone anything more. My heart still ached for the girl who used to call me Daddy, but the ache was a gentle one now, a reminder of love given freely, without expectation or need for recognition. And that, I realized, was the truest kind of revenge. To live without bitterness, to find a life beyond the story others had written for me, to stand in the soft light of a quiet morning and know that I had been enough, even if she never saw it. I made a small dinner for myself that night, the scent of garlic and rosemary filling the kitchen. I poured a glass of wine and sat at the table alone, the steady hum of the city outside my window. I raised the glass in a small, private toast. Not to Emma, not to the years I'd spent chasing a title that no longer fit, but to myself, to the man who had given everything, and to the man who had finally learned to let it go. As I took that first sip, I felt something settle inside me, a quiet finality, a kind of freedom that tasted bittersweet and clean. I closed my eyes and let it fill me, the soft glow of the evening wrapping around me like a benediction. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was waiting for anyone to see me. And in that silence, in that final letting go, I found a peace that was mine alone. If you enjoyed this story and want to support more quiet, introspective journeys like it, please consider subscribing, leaving a comment to share your thoughts, and liking and sharing the story with others who might need to hear it. Your support helps bring more of these bittersweet tales to life. See you soon in the next story.